Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. I'm Cristal Martinez Acosta, joined by Elisa D., licensed clinical social worker.
Hello, I'm back.
Yay!
And in the same room.
Yes, we're actually in the same room. We're not doing anything over the internet today or over Zoom. Well, we were using something called Riverside FM if you're interested ever in doing a digital recording studio. But we wanted to just do an in-person kind of recording because the dynamic is a little bit better, sounds better, and it's easier to kind of pick up on each other's social cues, I think.
Right.
Yeah. But today we're going to talk about the third season of Love is Blind because we were mentioning it briefly in the previous episode, and I just finished watching it. Elisa watched it when it first came out.
Yes, I watched it. I binge watched it basically, or as quickly as I could watch it is basically how I watched it. I think they were releasing them a few episodes at a time, and I was watching them at that pace.
So with that said, Love is Blind, the third season, can be found on Netflix. If you do not or have not seen it or don't want to see it, just be reminded that this episode of Through the Eyes of a Therapist right now, as you're listening to it, will be full of spoilers. So exit this podcast now if you don't want spoilers about the show, because we're going to go in depth and talk a lot about the final couples who got engaged to each other from the pods, who hadn't seen each other and got engaged sight unseen, and all of that. And we're going to talk about probably the reunion episode a little bit, and the couples that we thought were problematic, either as individuals or as couples.
Yeah, we should probably mention that we're not, diagnosing or treating any of the participants, and this is really just a personal opinion based on what I saw, right? And we all know that media is manipulated and edited to make things look a certain way.
For sure.
And so we can only go off of that though, because we were not there for other things. And this is a very small snapshot, I'm sure, of a person's personality. Because, we know people are more complex than that and things are not black and white.
Absolutely. We're not diagnosing, treating, or conceptualizing the whole person based on snippets from a show, because that would be unethical and it is not within our scope of practice to do that. So this is for entertainment purposes only, and it is watching the show through the eyes of a therapist as part of our therapist identity. It's interesting to watch shows like this because we can't really turn off that part of our brain at the same time. But for entertainment purposes, or the entertainment value it provides for us as people, is still there, right? Like, we're watching it as people, but it's kind of hard to not see some of the pathologies or some of the toxicity or some of the relational patterns that are happening in the show or between subjects, so to speak. So those are the kinds of things that we want to give people some insight on. However, it is not a full professional diagnosis or anything like that. And of course, whenever you're listening to a podcast, at least one of my podcasts, or us talking as therapists, like Elisa said, it's never something that you should take seriously, or never substitute it for medical or professional advice of your own. So with that said, all the disclaimers out of the way, and spoiler alerts out of the way, let's get into it. And we want to talk about, is love really blind?
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit in your last episode. We went into that a tiny bit, so I've been thinking about that. Obviously, we know that love at first sight does exist, right? There are a lot of people who say...
Does it?
Well, I think some people it definitely does, maybe not to everyone. Mm-hmm. But I've heard so many people say it was love at first sight, right? I don't know, but at least their perception is that they experience this. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever experienced that, and I don't know if you've ever experienced love at first sight.
No, I don't think so. Maybe like attraction, like physical attraction, but not like
Yeah.
love at first sight. Like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this person.
So I think that when you meet someone, you are going to start taking in everything about them, right? Like their mannerisms, their way of speaking, um, their sense of humor as you get to know them, right? And I think all of that is so important that it's difficult to just in one meeting be like, this is the person. But again, I've heard people say that, so I'm only going off of what I think, especially in this show, because initially when they meet, they're in pods, right? So do you think from just hearing a person speak, and I am assuming there's a speaker? I don't know how it works, but I don't know how they hear each other speak.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like, how is it amplified in the other room?
Yeah. Or is
Maybe.
are these rooms made so that just sound can just travel through whatever wall? I don't know.
Yeah, like acoustically. I get it.
So,
That's interesting too.
yeah, it is because
If it sounds like through a headphone or like a
right.
speaker, it has that like almost like stereofied, that's not a word, but like that
Yeah.
crunchy sound versus like, oh, it's a natural sound.
Yeah, like an in-person kind of, you know, voice. And so these are all, if I think back to how I grew up, I would always first notice how people speak. And for me, it's just because speaking and language was such a huge part of my life that for me, how a person spoke was very important. And sometimes very immediately off-putting, or sometimes immediately like, wow, like I want to speak like that.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm laughing because I relate. I mean, it wasn't as important, but I totally understand what you mean. When you meet someone and you can think in your own life of like, man, I met that one person and the way they spoke to me, either like their tone or like the abrasiveness of the way they enunciate or pronounce words is just like off-putting, and it's like, oh, what the fuck? Like, get away from me.
Or their rhythm of speech, right? And so there's so many tiny little nuances just to speech, right? We're not even the rest of the body or the person's personality yet. That's just speech.
Yeah.
But so if I'm imagining myself, I only have a voice to go off of. The way that person speaks would have been super important to me personally.
Right. So that's the one aspect that's really important on Love is Blind. When they meet each other in the pods, or quote unquote meet each other in the pods, they meet each other's voices. So they're hearing how they sound, how they speak, how they can articulate in the moment. If somebody's nervous and maybe they're not able to say what they mean at the moment, or they're not able to fully, articulate sentences or say how they feel or express emotion or different things like that, I think is also going to impact the relationship, which I guess could be a good thing, right? Like, how do you make an emotional connection? And that's what they keep saying in the show, right? Like, I really just want to create an emotional connection with somebody. Like, I keep falling for the wrong people because I always go off of looks. And if I'm such a bad judge of character, quote unquote, because I keep falling in love with somebody's body or their whatever, their physical appearance.
Yeah, they keep saying that.
Right.
They keep saying that, but then, when they're out, it does play a role. It does play a role because several of them say things about that. But I guess we'll leave that for a little bit later when they meet each other. But I think that in people's minds, conceptually, they want to be like, oh, I'm only going off of personality, right? But then reality hits, and they're like, wait a second, this is not who I, or what I thought this person looked like in my head. Because they still draw up a picture of this person in their heads based on just talking to them.
Yeah, and I think that's totally natural and part of like the human brain is that we're constantly trying to categorize and put things in boxes and categories and line them up. And it's just part of the way that we function. And so, yeah, we can also, I think, become attracted to people's like voices and become attracted to like intellect. I'm attracted to intellect, but at the same time, I'm also attracted to people who can listen to me. right? So if somebody's a really good listener and maybe they reflect back really accurately, right? Like as a therapist, that's like very therapist-y. Oh, they're listening to what I'm saying. And either they stayed quiet or they demonstrated somehow that they were really listening and paraphrased back what I said to them. I feel like that's a really attractive quality in somebody, that they're able to listen really well. I don't know if those are some of the things that matter to people, but I would imagine that this is what happens in my brain, is that what if a therapist goes on that show? They would be like probably really good at the pods. They can make anybody fall in love with them. It's almost manipulative, and they would have an unfair advantage. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
probably.
Maybe. They'd be good at the emotional connection thing. Right?
I think when you go in, yes, because you know how to do that, right? All those listening skills.
You know how to demonstrate emotional connection.
But at the same time, when you're just being yourself, you're probably all nervous and freaking out that you're in the pod, and what do you do? And what if you make a wrong choice, right? Because just speaking for myself, I know that a situation like that would make me anxious. And I'd just be overthinking everything, right? All interactions suddenly.
I'm also really, like, when I'm watching it, I get really bad, like, secondhand embarrassment almost. Like, when I'm watching people, like flirt with each other.
Embarrassment?
Yeah. Like, when I'm watching the people flirt with each other, they cannot flirt with their body language, right? They have to say things.
Right.
That are flirtatious, and I'm like, like, I get like all weird, and I'm like, I would not be able to do that. Like, how do you express that? Like, obviously you would have to say that. I don't know, like
Did you notice that? And have you watched the other seasons, by the way?
Yes, I have.
Did you notice that as the seasons have gone on, they have found ways to say they're attractive without saying they're attractive?
Right.
Did you notice that?
Yes. So, like, I'm a Pilates instructor.
Yes. I work out a lot. I'm always working out.
Yes.
Right. I'm a ballerina.
Right.
I heard that many times.
Right. Or I'm really, really rich and I'm well traveled, and like, I get along with a lot of people, and like people gravitate toward me.
I think the ballerina was like, I'm really bendy.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, okay.
Like, we get it.
Okay, we get what you're trying to say. So those are qualities that you would probably think are like, oh, physically, those are things that I would gravitate toward in the real world, right?
Yeah, remember that, I think the guy last season that asked, could I put you on my shoulders?
Oh, God, yes.
So that was his way of trying to find out someone's weight or body shape, which is, I mean, it's a little bit, it's not subtle at all, by the way, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, true. Can we talk about the moment where they, like, see each other? Like, they pick each other, they propose to each other, and they see each other.
Yeah.
And, like, do you ever feel like you can kind of tell if they like each other or don't like each other physically? Like, are there signs or signals that you feel like, oh, they don't like each other? Like, that physically is not going to work out. Like...
So you're going to have to remind me if that happened this season, because I think there was, I can't remember who now, because I watched it right when it came out, but somebody was, there are the couples that like run to each other, right? And seem very excited and very like, oh my God, you know, when they go back to their separate rooms, they're like, yes, right? Like, score, right? And then there's the ones that are a little bit more hesitant, but I can't remember who was hesitant this season. I can't recall. Did you see that?
I felt like Raven and SK, specifically maybe like Raven was kind of like, like a little more hesitant in her body language. It was maybe just like the way that she like tensed her like face or like her lips, and then like kind of didn't like kiss him on the lips and like hugged him instead, and like was kind of like trying to stay away from looking at him in the eyes, and like not giving direct eye contact, not like too much like
Yeah.
face contact. Like I felt, okay, I don't think she's physically attracted to him. And then as the season went on to the season finale, they, I guess, disclosed that they hadn't been like sexually active until like after the wedding. That didn't happen anyway, right?
Right.
So I was like, oh, interesting. So maybe there wasn't like sexual chemistry anyway.
Yeah, the whole season she did seem kind of a little, and I don't know what it was, right? I don't know her background. I don't know if for her, I don't know the reasons why, right? But she did seem, there was more physical distance always between her and SK.
Like aloof?
Yeah, like aloof. I think she was uncomfortable, and I don't think he specifically was making her uncomfortable. I just think she was uncomfortable just overall, just herself. And I think it took her really getting to know the person.
Yeah, so we don't know if it's like an issue of physical attraction, is what you're saying, or is it like her own personal like stuff that she was working through?
Like, I don't think SK was making her uncomfortable, or at least not that I saw in the scenes.
Right.
I didn't see anything that I was like, oh, this is why, you know. I didn't see anything, so I can only go off of, I think it was just her, her needing to really maybe get to know him.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only one I think maybe could have been a little bit like, And then, of course, like Bartise and Nancy, where he explicitly was kind of like, I'm not sure if like the physical matched the emotional or something like that. Which I think was kind of the point of the show, right? Is the experiment to prove like, is emotional love or like intellectual, like all the other stuff aside from the physical, enough to carry you through and like develop a relationship.
Yeah, so they were interesting. They also had like cultural differences, right? But yeah, he did a few times say something like he's the kind of person that gets a lot of attention. Bartise is the person that he said, I get a lot of attention when I walk into rooms, right?
True.
And seemed to be implying that Nancy kind of wasn't at that level. Not that she was unattractive, but simply like he didn't seem to think she was quite where he was at. Right? Which is like, I don't think that's a real smart thing to say to that person that you just proposed to.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with some of the dudes in this season, but just kind of speaking, like, they framed it as, like, honesty.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm like, sometimes you don't say things just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Right? And actually, I was talking to my husband about this last night, because we finished the season together. So we saw the last episode and then the season finale, like, reunion thing together. And I was like, what is up with these dudes? And he's like, I think they're just immature, is what he said. Yeah. And I was like, interesting. What makes you say that? And he's like, they just don't want to shut up. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what it is, right? Like, they don't know how to, like, control that impulse or urge to, like, just either brag about themselves or, like, say something inappropriate to the women.
Right.
Or say things a certain way, like in an eloquent way or with tact, or...
Yeah. Do you think that they just don't understand how that's coming across?
Yeah, I don't think so.
They think they're being, quote, honest.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm just brutally honest. It's like, no,
I
bro, you're being an
perceive
ass.
that as being kind of douchey.
Yeah. You're being a douche canoe. No, for sure, right? Like... oh my god, my volume's gonna get cut off with that because I'm like screaming into the microphone. No, for sure. Yeah, I agree. Like, some of it is like when the discussion between Bartise and Nancy happened, I think they were drinking is one thing. When they were in the bed and they were talking to each other about how he's like, yeah, Raven is like a smoke show and like whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck? Sorry, like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, why would you deliberately cause a rupture, Gottman terms, in, like, a relationship like
Yeah.
that, right? Like, why drive a wedge or like plant a seed of doubt in somebody's brain?
Well, of course, because if you're hearing that, it's definitely going to be perceived as criticism, as a threat, as I am not as good as blank,
Right.
right? He would rather be with this person, And so it's not a smart thing to say. Like, there's no, being honest is not supposed to just be hurtful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hurt your feelings. I'm being, disguise it as I'm being honest.
Right. Now, I wonder how the conversation should have maybe gone where it would have been productively honest. Like, where they could have had a conversation about, like, we're going through this process together. There was a choice between two people, and I finally saw what the other person looked like, and I was having maybe some internal thoughts about it that I have to process with my therapist. The end. Shut your face, right? Like,
Right.
you don't have to tell somebody your every single thought. What do you
Yeah.
think? I don't know.
No, I agree with
Or like talk about
I
it with your friends.
I'm just
like,
trying to. Yeah, but see, the problem is, though, everyone on that show is telling everyone everything. Because
yeah.
when they socialize and they go off and they tell their partner what they said, and then that person tells everyone else what they said.
Bunch of chismosos, yeah.
Yes, which of course, right, this is kind of why everyone watches the show. It creates drama, right?
Right.
But I don't think there's a good way to, I mean, I think you said it in a good way. I don't think there's any positive way to say that Raven's a smoke show if that's not your partner. There's no good way to say that.
No.
You probably just don't say that to your partner. And if at the end of the experience you feel we are simply not compatible, say that. Like, we are not compatible. Or, there's something missing and this is why I've decided I don't think we should be married. Or I don't know. But, if you're from the beginning making that person doubt your feelings, how is that relationship going to get better and grow?
Right. Exactly. It's like you're creating rupture after rupture
In the beginning.
in the beginning.
So how's that? There's nowhere to grow now, or there's going to be a lot of barriers now.
Well,
And Bartiz was not the only one to do that with the creating,
with the physical attraction.
creating ruptures, as you say.
This is what I was waiting to talk about with you, because when I was finally finishing watching the episodes, I voice messaged you because I wasn't sure what to make of Cole and Zanab.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is what you're referring to right now. Mm-hmm. Is like kind of Cole's comments and like what Cole did and said during the show. So I know that he was a little bit younger.
Yeah.
And seemed to be a little bit less mature, what I like to call raw cookie dough. Right? Like, just not put in the oven a little bit. He needs to be left in the oven a little bit longer, maybe, to bake with life experience and
probably. Such. I mean, disclaimer, just Cole.
No?
I have difficulties with that.
Why? Okay, tell me. This is what I'm trying to wrap my head around why you have such
I don't know. I had a very strong reaction to Cole.
Okay.
He was, for me, his mannerisms and his way of speech is very, it's like this and that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, very absolute. Okay. Very, I guess, very strong. Right? And I have a hard time with that because I don't believe anybody knows everything, including me. And so I try to leave room for discourse. Right? Or for questioning or for whatever. But he's just very like this. And then, I don't know. I didn't, I don't know. I had a hard time with his personality.
See, and like with Zanab, right? I found her to be a little bit annoying. So I had like, not an equal reaction to her, but I found her to be a little bit problematic because I felt like she would like implode and not tell him
Right.
specifically or explicitly what she needed in the moment or what was wrong. And it was like, what do you want him to do? Like mind read? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and then she would hold it, and then it would explode into like an argument later. And I think the thing I really did not appreciate was like at the very end in that final episode with the wedding, where she was just like, and you single-handedly like shattered my self-confidence. And I'm like, like what? You know, like how does one person
Yeah.
do that? You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
a whole series of life events that has to happen and lead up to
So
that.
so what you're saying is she didn't communicate enough for you. Like she wasn't
Communicative.
Yes.
Like she was just like, I'm gonna like bitch
She
about
kind of
certain
held it
things.
held it in, right? And then at the end was kind of like this and this and this and this.
Yes,
and,
and
right.
that like really pisses me off, like when people do that,
Yeah.
because it's like,
But I
were you
think that
on the
same
daily?
argument of raw cookie dough can be applied to her though, because to me she becomes frustrated, but she doesn't know how to voice it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, until
True.
she explodes. But by then it's like you've let so many things happen
Yeah.
that it's not constructive, right? But I know so many people who are like that, and you know, probably I'm like that sometimes. I try not to. I've gotten a lot better at communication, obviously, especially through this job.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be. You have to get a lot better. But if I were
Yeah.
20-year-old me, I think I did that a lot.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing because you're frustrated, but you kind of don't know how to express it. Or I remember sitting in classes and having like good points in my head, but like, how do I get them out?
Right. So having the ability to articulate or to assert yourself and say, I need this from you, or please stop doing this. The thing is, though, is that she would communicate, but it was about, like, to me in my brain, like things that were a little bit unimportant or right at the surface, right? So, like, at the end in the reunion episode, they showed like this montage, right, of her like picking at him, like, oh, this bland white chicken, like you didn't season it. Do you remember that? Where she's just like picking at him for like not picking up socks or
Yeah.
whatever. And I don't know if, of course, that's a snapshot, a very edited like
Yeah.
portrayal of her, right?
Right.
But if that's kind of like the thing that was important to her to pick at, like,
Yeah.
where was the talk about like self-confidence, or where was the talk about like, please don't tell me about my eating habits, or please don't say this?
Right.
So when they showed the thing about the cuties or the oranges at the very, 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 very end of the whole series, right? So the thing about the cuties that we're talking about here is where Zanab accuses Cole of like trying to control her eating habits.
Yeah.
And accuses him of like, I guess like fat shaming her, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if, I think language matters, right? And I'm not sure if she like inferred or assumed or jumped to the conclusion, or there was like some emotional reasoning there like happening. I'm sure that he also is not careful with his words.
Yeah.
And like,
We also don't know what her triggers are, right? And clearly, if she had a strong reaction to this may be a trigger, or she may have had a lot of experience where people have commented on her weight,
right.
or parents, right? And I think we've talked about how, you know, sometimes parents will try to say something like, "Oh, you know, you should lose some weight, or you should," and it's normally it's not malicious, but as children, we only hear like, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we perceive it in a certain, and sometimes it is malicious, you know, I don't know. But people, I think most of the time are they have good intentions. Like your parents, they have normally, not always, but I would say most of the time, they're trying to help you in some way. But I know, you know, if I heard that from my mom or something, I did not take it in a good way at all. Mm-hmm. I was just like, oh my God, why is this person criticizing me? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we don't know if she had that. it might have been a big trigger for her, and I don't know. But I think he tried to really play it off as like, oh, I'm just commenting on this thing, you know. I think he tried to say it in a playful way, but the words were still there.
Right.
In my opinion.
I think he said, like, you better save your appetite for, like,
right.
later on or something like that. Which is, like, still inappropriate. It's like, let her eat oranges.
Like, she wants a cutie, let her eat a cutie.
Yeah, it's a snack, and she can regulate her own food how she wants to, right?
Yeah.
No matter how big or small her appetite is, like, shut your face. Like, if she wants to eat a whole
don't
meal now, she can eat a whole meal later too, right? Like, shut up. But also, I think, like, she at that moment could have said something, right? Like, there, instead of, I think what she responded with in the moment was something like, oh, well, I could tell you, but I'm not going to.
Right.
Like, she shut down. So instead of shutting down, it's like, no, spit it out. You know what I mean?
Say it,
Just say it. And so I think the problem with that, sorry, like,
okay.
you're talking, face it that way. We're on Instagram Live right now, just so that you know, just for a few minutes. I should probably turn it off now. But anyways, yeah, I think that's the thing, is that, you know, when you see couples like that, and you kind of hear the cliche about when couples fight about, like, socks or the towel on the floor or whatever it is. It's like, it's never about the socks or the towel. Yeah. Of course it's not.
It's not really, no.
It's always about a deeper issue. And so I think you could clearly see that with Cole and Xana, right? And I think it was for the best that they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, yeah. You should have seen that. Like, wait, can you do it again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, no. We're glad that didn't work out, I guess.
No, honestly, I don't think he's ready. And I'm not even sure she's ready. But either way, together, I don't think it would have been a great outcome.
Yeah.
Just, they had a lot of, you know, issues.
Mm-hmm.
Different personalities, different, a lot of different everything, you know.
What about the couples that did end up getting married and saying yes to each other? By Instagram.
Remind me the name of the guy that said that he had a long-term partner, and I don't know if that was his wife, but she had cheated on him.
Oh, yes. Matt Bolton with Colleen. So the ballerina and like the aerospace guy or something.
Yeah.
Matt and Colleen.
So again, we're only seeing this snapshot, right? But there were a couple times where in this snapshot that we got, it seemed like Matt was just very jealous person and a bit insecure, at least in what they showed us. Maybe he's not like that, and they really just picked the two moments where he was having a bad day. But I was a little bit concerned about that because, I don't know. It seemed a little red flaggy to me.
Oh, for sure. Like, it got into, like, possessive territory and, like...
bit of control issues.
And he was very reactive.
Yeah.
The first time that thing between Cole and Colleen happened, right?
Right.
That whole blow up or whatever.
Which, again, Cole, maybe don't go up to people who are engaged to other people and tell them that they're super attractive, or I don't know what he said to her.
Like, in the real world, I would have approached you.
Yeah.
But she also said it back.
But did she really?
I mean...
Was she just, like, uncomfortably didn't know what to say? I don't know. I'm not sure. I would not know what to say.
Like, I mean...
What do you say? Like, you... Because if you say no, like, how rude. Like, no, well, like, why are you saying that? I don't know. Any reaction, and if you say yes, like, oh, thank you, then then you can be accused of you liked that compliment, or you like him, or I feel like there's no good response to that for her.
Or maybe like, okay, we're now engaged though, so do you think that that's appropriate to say?
Oh, okay, that's a much better response. Yeah, that's a good response.
Yeah.
You would be good on that show.
I would be. I'd be setting boundaries left and right. Son, don't be coming up to me and trying to confuse me.
But remember, they're casting like 24-year-olds.
Well, no, there was a 31-year-old, Nancy, right? She's 31 or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a couple of people in their 30s, but I'm 36. I'm like way past that, like prime or whatever. But I think, and she was like a speech therapist. So, see, again, I don't know if they would put a therapist on the show because I think we're too quick to set boundaries.
Yeah.
The snapping, sorry, but like, I don't know. I think we would stop the drama. But if they get like a really unaware
Right.
therapist who is also raw cookie dough, personally in their personal life.
Well, but see, I feel like you and I've had time to think about this, but in the moment, like if it came out of nowhere, I'm just sitting there, right? I think I would be a little bit like, that's kind of a weird thing to say, right? Like,
or walk away.
or you could walk away. Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. That the safest thing would be to just say like we're both engaged to other people. That's the safest thing to say.
We're both engaged to other people.
Yeah.
Let's change the subject.
That ship has sailed.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Of course, in that moment, they may not know if they're going to stay together with their significant other. Do you think that's what he was trying to do? Kind of lay some kind of groundwork to date her later?
Who? Maybe. Maybe it was like a master
like
plan.
Expressing interest so that
maybe. Well,
kind of like a plan B or something.
I think in the pod they were like kind of compatible because of the Cole and Colleen. Like I remember that their names matched. They were like matchy cute.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, maybe that was part of his like plan in his head or something.
Yeah, but either way, Matt did not respond well to that.
No, I don't think.
And I mean, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it was like a huge trigger. It was like the response was very heightened.
Yeah, it was
very heightened response. Instead of just leaving it at like maybe, hey, dude, that was inappropriate. Maybe don't talk to my fiance like that. The end. And I don't know. He kind of blew up a little bit.
Yeah, and he was like, it's either this or that, like it's over. I think he tried to leave her 2 or 3 times, right, in the whole season.
Yeah, like I'm leaving.
Yeah, like his fight or flight kicked in, his flight kicked in, right? Yes, like for sure.
He realized a little bit like that he was doing that because I think he talked to his friends about it towards the end.
Yes, I remember that.
And I think they were kind of encouraging him, which really goes to show like your support, right? It matters. If your friends are encouraging your relationship, you know, not that we only do what our friends say, but our friends do become someone to lead, because when we talk it through, right, we're kind of processing it, right? And they were kind of encouraging him, like, you know, you can be in this long-term relationship again. Don't be afraid because of what happened in the past. They were kind of encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. Support systems are important. It just makes me also think of like his mom, and like at the very end, the wedding episode, how she looked really worried. Well, at least they edited it that way. Like, follow your heart. Like, follow your heart. He's like, I love you, mom. I love you, mom. Bye. I love you. And she's like, follow your heart. Like 10 times into his ear. I was like, damn, lady, like you're really concerned. Like, I don't know if she wanted him to marry her. Like, at least that's what they made it look like.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, and the thing that kept popping up in my head was like, they make marriage look so much like a huge deal in somebody's life. It is, okay? Like, I get it. It is very much legal, though. It's like a very, like, legal, like, contractual thing. Right. And yes, you, in the traditional sense, you live with this person every day in a monogamous way. It's very, like, penguin-like, right? Like, you bring you a pebble and, like, you have a family with them and you live with them or whatever. And they're kind of, like, your roommate for life or whatever.
Right.
However, like, if the relationship is abusive or toxic in some way, like, you can leave the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, or if it was, like, this was a bad call, like, you can get divorced. Right. You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah. Or if you both just changed and in really like separate directions, right? If you
Yeah.
don't change together, you don't evolve together, but
Right.
more separate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can decide, like, we gave it a shot, we did our best, whatever, but we're
Right.
going to go our separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially, again, thinking back, it's a big deal when you've never been married. I mean, I think it's very intimidating because, even though divorce exists, it's just like a scary thing. And so your parents are like, oh my God, are you sure this is the person, this and that, right? That seemed to be what she was doing. Just follow your heart, right? Trying to tell him to just, be sure about his decision, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe she said other things to him. I have no idea. But I think they were panicking a little bit.
Also, marriage, the way it stands legally and everything, right? Like, the patriarchy created this thing. And, like, it really benefits men way more than women. So it's kind of like, I don't know what she was too worried about. I think I'd be worried more for the woman in this case. The person who identifies as the woman in this case. But, I mean, I don't know. But it also made me think of, when I was watching it, how we don't really celebrate other things.
Yeah.
Or other milestones in people's lives. People opening their own businesses, for example. Or, like, when somebody has a graduation from, like, a master's program or a PhD, or for their bachelor's degree, or
Right.
like they get their real estate license or whatever it is. Like, we don't have a big giant party for that with a puffy dress. Like, that would be cool. Like, if I ever got my PhD, I would want a Cinderella dress with makeup and shit. Like, why not?
Yeah, celebrate however you want.
Yeah, like, that's a huge ass milestone. But, like, this, like, there aren't really any qualifications for this. you know?
Right.
But this is like a billion-dollar industry.
It's like, again, traditional milestones, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should celebrate more non-traditional milestones.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And make that more things to be celebrated than just that, right?
Mm-hmm. Just made me think of that, and I was like,
Yeah. So then, if this is one of the few big milestones you celebrate, then there is a lot of pressure on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pressure on it, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of perceived pressure by your friends, your family, yourself, society. Like, because nobody wants to be like Ross when he kept saying, I've got those 3 failed marriages, right?
Mm-hmm.
He kept saying that, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can turn it into this big deal in your head, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's, like, milestone versus accomplishment, right? So, like, is marriage an accomplishment? I don't think so.
Well, I know. Well, I don't.
Is
I don't
golf
think so
a sport?
Oh, God, here we go with the golf is sport.
No, I don't think so. My husband thinks golf is a sport. I don't think so. But, so is marriage an accomplishment? No. I'm just saying.
I think it's a skill, but again, we could go into that all day.
That'll be another episode.
Yeah, that's a whole other
That'll be our
episode.
second episode
We need to
after
bring
this.
your husband in here for that podcast.
Oh, it'll just be yelling back and forth. Yeah. He's an athletic trainer, so just in case you're wondering, what the heck, why?
Were there any relationships that you thought were really good on this show? Like, really fairly healthy?
I don't know. I just think the whole concept is really weird.
See, that required a visual aid there, that face you just made.
Yeah, into a meme with, like, my neck tucked back to make, like, a triple neck. Yeah, like, no. I don't know. I think, like, Alexa and Brendan were okay. I think they had good compatibility. I think they were both, like, laid back in their own ways. And I think they had a good sense of humor. I think a good sense of humor is really important in a long-term relationship. No matter what kind of relationship it is, whether it's a marriage relationship, a business partnership, a friendship, you have to have a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. I don't know if Colleen and Matt will make it. That didn't seem really good to me.
So I saw an update. Do you want to from the recap that I saw today about what were their names? Hold on a sec. Raven and SK.
Did they got back together? No.
They did, yeah. Yeah. And then there was a couple, oh God, and now I'm going to be no help because I don't remember their... Well, at the you watched the reunion show.
I did, yes.
There was a couple that didn't live together.
Yeah, it was Colleen and Matt.
Colleen and Matt.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not living together because of like rent or financial reasons or something. Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that it's rent and financial reasons, or do you think it's something like something's going on, or like something bad they don't want to say?
Let's speculate.
I mean, there's no way for us to know.
No, there isn't.
But do you think it is?
I don't know. That required a visual too, huh? I'm like, I don't know. I think, you know what? The more I think about it, there could be something going on there. That's just my like personal view, not my like therapist-y view. But like, I kind of want to believe him. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, I get it. Like, rent's expensive, and Dallas has a high cost of living. 'Cause that's where they are, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're in Dallas.
Okay.
So that shit's expensive. Their leases, and like she said something about roommates and screwing them over or something. But most of the time they are together.
See, here's what I'm thinking personally.
Okay, tell me. Oh, I'm so excited.
No, I mean it's not that exciting, but I think that they realized it's kind of crazy the pace that the show goes at.
Oh.
That it's going so fast, right? You engaged, you live together, then you have to decide if you're getting married. And they got married, right? But they don't know each other because they haven't actually really, truly dated yet. And I wonder if they were like, we're not going to move in together because we're going to date someone. Like, we don't want to skip all the fun stuff and just go straight to...
So they're kind of like, I'm going to, like, pretend to date this person even though we're, like, technically married?
Right. I wonder if they're still getting to know each other.
Oh.
And not in a way where they're like... Okay, well, I don't know. They don't feel like this was all terrible, but they're feeling like maybe they need pressure. To get it. Yeah, they need to get to know each other a little bit more. I don't know. That's my theory, that they're like, oh crap, this is going very fast.
Whiplash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. I would have no idea what to speculate, but that's a good like hypothesis. So we shall see.
What do you make of all the families that didn't come? I just felt a little bit sad for them.
I felt sad for them. I don't understand that concept because I think like my family is very like ride or die. Like even if I made a stupid decision, I think they would be like, well, we're here for you, pendeja. You know, like, like, pues ya hiciste un desmadre. Like, we're here, you know, like.
They're still going to comfort you. Right, if shit hits the fan.
Unfortunately, that's just how we are. I mean, as toxic / dysfunctional that might seem, I don't know if that's because of it's our culture or whatever, but like that's just. So I don't get it.
I mean, I believe Nancy is Latina, right?
Yeah.
And her family was ready to.
They were ready to throw down.
Yeah,
they were like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. I was like, "Oh damn." I was like, that mom's like mafiosa or some shit, dude. Like, for real. I thought, like...
I don't think my family would throw down, but they would definitely, like, whisk me away and talk really bad about that person.
Yeah. And they would be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
right?
They'd be like, you
I'm going to have to label this episode as explicit because I cuss too much. Or beat myself out, I think. Anyways, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't understand them not showing up. Because... what Fernie and I were talking about last night when we saw one of the final wedding episodes was kind of like, how is it that, for example, Zeneb doesn't have her parents because they're dead?
Right.
But Cole's parents decide not to show up just because, like, I don't agree with it.
I think for them, I got the sense from Cole that his family was very religious. And we don't approve of this non-traditional marriage type thing. That's the feeling I got. I have no evidence, really. That's just the vibe.
No, yeah, I got the same vibe.
Yeah.
However, like, in comparison, right, like, that perspective, right, it's like, this girl's parents are not alive. And you're here being...
kind of sad.
Like, my religion is getting in the way of, like, my relationships. Or, like, of showing up on an important date. Right. Whichever way it was gonna go.
Right.
Right? Which is... It went bad for him.
Yeah.
It would have been nice for the mom and dad to have been there to support their son
Sure. For sure, yeah.
being attacked or whatever it was that he perceived.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and Raven too, right? I think her family also didn't want to come, or
Yeah, I don't know what the reasons were.
I don't either.
But it would have been, I think, helpful.
I mean, it was really nice that SK's mom kind of comforted her.
Yeah, and came back and was like, I don't know what happened.
See,
blah,
that
blah.
shows a very high emotional IQ.
Yes, like to be able to see the other person's
To be
point
able
of
to
view.
go, okay, my son couldn't marry you or didn't feel comfortable marrying you, but you were a good person.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
we still appreciate you and this and that. Which, very good move, especially if they did get back together. But that showed a lot of, like, maturity in class.
Yeah. Just because you're old doesn't mean you're mature.
Yep.
Emotionally.
And you can do that. You can comfort somebody else like that. You know? It doesn't cost anything to be kind, you know?
For sure. That whole little last, like, minute was, like, worth $1 million. So if you want to support Elisa and I, go to my Patreon. Because those, like, few sentences were expensive. Just saying. Anyway, I think that wraps up our episode for today on Love is Blind Season 3. We will rate and review other shows out loud on Through the Eyes of a Therapist. Don't forget to go to my new website, www.clarityelpaso.com. Visit all my socials on TikTok, Cristal Acosta, Through the Eyes of a Therapist, Instagram, at Through the Eyes of a Therapist, and Facebook. Go get free downloads on clarityelpaso.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Elisa, for coming back.
Thanks for having me, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.